In the dusty streets of Gunnison, Colorado, where the echoes of the Old West still linger, there's a figure who embodies both the romance and the ruggedness of that bygone era, Doc Holliday. Known as much for his sharp wit as his deadly accuracy with a revolver, Doc has become a legend in these parts, a living relic of a time when the frontier was untamed and justice was often meted out at the barrel of a gun. Today, we have the rare opportunity to sit down with this enigmatic gunslinger, to delve into the myths, the truths, and the complexities that define one of the West's most enduring icons. So, holster your pistols and pull up a chair as we embark on an unforgettable journey into the heart and mind of Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday earned his notoriety in the blood-soaked streets of Tombstone, Arizona Territory, but it was in Colorado that his legend took an unexpected turn, all thanks to a troublesome swindler named Perry Malin.
The encounter between Perry Malin and Doc Holliday unfolded in Pueblo, Colorado, during the second week of May 1882 at the Theater Comique. In this pivotal meeting, Perry Malin, a pestiferous character, approached the well-known 30-year-old gunslinger and gambler. Malin conveyed information that the brother of the slain Frank Stillwell was actively seeking Doc Holliday with lethal intentions. Holliday, having been part of the Wyatt Earp posse that killed Stillwell in the Tucson rail yard 2 months prior, found himself entangled in a web of danger. Warrants for the arrest of posse members had been issued, and Holliday had no reason to doubt Malin's alarming revelation. Unfazed by the potential threat, Holliday, not one to shy away from danger, asked Malin to identify Stillwell's vengeful brother. However, Malin, a small, bearded man, refused to comply. Holliday, drawing from his experiences in the tumultuous Arizona Territory, speculated that Malin had gleaned his knowledge from newspaper reports detailing the Earp saga. He suspected Malin of fabricating stories to serve his own mysterious agenda. Malin went on to make a puzzling claim, asserting that Holliday had once saved his life in Santa Fe, New Mexico territory. Regardless, Malin issued a bold and mysterious warning. "If you give me away, I will kill you." Holliday decided to ignore the curious threat, and nothing happened. Malin eventually moved on, and the anticipated confrontation with Stillwell's brother never materialized. Little did Doc Holliday know that this encounter was not the last he would see of Perry Malin. The story continues, and Holliday's assumptions about the nature of Malin's involvement in his life are about to be tested. Malin met Doc Holliday when he was 27 years old. Hailing from Akron, Ohio, Malin was the offspring of an Irishman who had abandoned his family. Perry's early life was marked by turmoil, leading to his confinement in the Ohio Reform School for Boys for over 2 years due to violent and abusive conduct. His presence in Ogden, Utah Territory in 1879 revealed a history of fraudulent activities and recent mistreatment of women. As a railroad employee, Malin was wed to an unfortunate woman named Rosina. However, following in his father's footsteps, Malin deserted his wife and newborn child in 1880. Exploiting confidence scams along the Union Pacific and Central Pacific railroads, Malin preyed on the vulnerable, particularly women, children, and the elderly. His schemes typically netted modest amounts, allowing him to elude the authorities. Perry Malin, in every sense, was a small-time operator, contrasting sharply with John Henry Doc Holliday. The Georgian, once a dentist, had gained notoriety on October 26, 1881, when he stood alongside Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan Earp during the famous Tombstone gunfight near the OK Corral. Of course, Holliday casts a much longer shadow as a brave man who could have handled cards and guns with finesse, if not for alcohol or tuberculosis. The violent events unfolded further when the so-called Cowboy faction ambushed Virgil in December, and Morgan fell victim to an ambush in March 1882. In retaliation, Wyatt, Holliday, and a deputized posse sought vengeance by gunning down Frank Stillwell at the Tucson depot. Faced with murder charges, the posse departed Arizona Territory in early April, heading east to Silver City, New Mexico Territory, where they sold their horses. Upon the body of Florentino Cruz, the murdered half-breed. At 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the following jury sat upon the body of Florentine Cruz, the half-breed Indian who was found dead near Pete Spence's Wood Ranch, high the South Pass of the Dragoons, on Thursday, the body having been brought to town and deposited at Ritter's undertaking rooms. Peter Tully, M. Gray, C.B. No, John M. Lee, John Eingsman, Wells Colby, T.J. Blackwood, J.R. Adams, M.H. Smith, A.C. Billica, Charles Brickweedle, and S.M. Barrow. Dr. G.E. Goodfellow was the first witness examined, who testified as follows with regard to the wounds. I found 4 wounds on the body. I commenced the examination at his head and followed down. The first shot entered at the right temple, penetrating the brain. The second produced a slight flesh wound in the right shoulder. The third entered on the right side of the body, near the liver, and made its exit to the right of the spine, about 5 or 6 inches to the right. The fourth struck in the left thigh and made its exit about 7 or 8 inches above the point of entry. In my opinion, 2 of the wounds, those in the head and right side, were sufficient to cause death. The wound in the thigh was probably produced when he was running or after he had fallen. He was probably lying on the ground. In my opinion, he was lying on the ground. Alter the wounds in the upper part of the body had been received. In my opinion, the wound in the thigh was received after he was dead. I form that opinion from the absence of blood around the wound. Theodore B.J. Gda, the young man who discovered the body and who was interviewed by an Epitaph reporter on Thursday, next testified, I am a resident of Tombstone, am a teamster by occupation. I have seen the body of the Mexican or Indian and recognize it as that of Florentino. Last Wednesday, we were in camp in the South Pass of the Dragoon Mountains. There were 5 of us, Sam Williams, Ramon Acosto, Florentino, a Mexican or half-breed whose name I do not know, and myself. At about 11 or 12 o'clock, Williams started out on horseback to search for some mules which had strayed from our camp. Inside of an hour, Florentino started out on foot for the same purpose. He had been gone a few minutes while I was lying in the shade, waiting for them to come back. When I looked up and saw Wyatt Earp coming over the hill on horseback, followed by live men. They were Warren Earp, Sherman McMasters, Doc Holliday, Texas Jack, and a party whom I have heard was named Johnson. Subsequently, they took a stage to Deming and then a northbound train to Albuquerque. Their plan was to rest briefly before seeking refuge in Colorado, their chosen safe haven. After a perceived disagreement with Wyatt in Albuquerque, Holliday, accompanied by fellow posse member Dan Tipton, parted ways with the group and forged ahead to immerse themselves in the lively atmosphere of Trinidad, Colo. By early May 1882, Holliday decided to leave Tipton and take the train to Pueblo. Notably, Perry Mallon happened to get off the train in Pueblo shortly afterward. This seemingly harmless coincidence eventually led to incidents that endangered Holliday's life and once again thrust his name into the spotlight. A few days following their peculiar conversation at the Comique, Holliday and Mallon crossed paths once more, this time in another Pueblo saloon. Intrigued, Holliday decided to delve deeper into Mallon's background. A local bartender informed Doc that Mallon had portrayed himself as a rancher who had recently sold his land in search of new opportunities. However, unexpectedly, Mallon borrowed $10 from the bartender and couldn't pay it back. Holliday swiftly assessed the rancher as a dubious character and a prevaricator. According to Holliday, Mallon attempted to enhance his reputation by showcasing a scar and claiming it resulted from a bullet wound, a statement that Doc dismissed as a mere mark of disease, prompting laughter. The Pueblo Daily Chieftain later reported that visiting men from Akron, Ohio, immediately recognized Mallon and that he had taken money from locals under false pretenses. Mallon, to acquaintances, presented himself as a traveler on business, while to strangers he asserted he was a detective. The newspaper confirmed Mallon's last known address as Ogden and described the cunning con artist as a small man with reddish face and beard, with small ferrety eyes and not an inviting cast of features. The Denver Tribune provided additional insights when it disclosed that Mallon seemed to be a former railroad brakeman who had been discharged and was notably absent the little finger on his left hand. Whatever the truth, Doc determined Mallon had no value and could not be trusted. Opting to distance himself from Pueblo, Doc decided to head north and explore opportunities in Denver. Unbeknownst to Doc, Mallon seized an opportunity to exploit him for quick money and clandestinely trailed the former dentist to the mile-high city. By mid-May 1882, Holliday, accompanied by two fellow gamblers, boarded a train bound for Denver to partake in the horse races. On May 15th, while walking near the intersection of 16th and Lawrence Streets, Holliday was forced to surrender when Perry Mallon appeared from the shadows and pointed two revolvers at him. Mallon, purporting to be a California lawman, enlisted the assistance of local Deputy Sheriff Charles Linton to escort Holliday to the sheriff's office. Mallon cleverly convinced Linton that Doc was wanted in the Arizona Territory for murder and that a large reward had been offered for his capture. While at the sheriff's office, Mallon kept two six-shooters aimed at Holliday. Fearing for his safety, the gambler protested to Linton, while Mallon appeared very worried. Linton assured Doc no harm would come to him and summoned a cab to transport the prisoner to the county jail. Meanwhile, Mallon further alleged that Doc was also wanted in Utah Territory for the murder of Harry White, who was believed to be a close associate of the con man. According to Mallon, the fatal incident occurred at a St. George, Utah Territory saloon where Holliday was dealing faro. Mallon repeated the ridiculous story that Doc had injured him 6 times, and with acting flair he quickly raised his left hand during the interview and credited Holliday's 6-shot shooter for his missing pinky finger. Mallon enjoyed the instant fame that Holliday's arrest brought. He gave interviews to the more gullible newspapers and told increasingly strange stories about his 7 years of chasing the gambler. The Denver Tribune was never completely convinced by Mallon's account of events, and quickly reported that he acted like a suspicious man and did not handle a pistol with the grace of the trained desperado hunter that he purported to be. Doc Holliday himself later commented that Mallon was not a gunman, as he had a silver-mounted revolver such as a cowboy would disdain to carry. A Denver reporter added, "The manner in which he handled his pistol showed that he was afraid it would go off every moment, and that he was more frightened than Holliday was evident." Despite the dubious and sensational nature of Mallon's stories, Denver tabloids persisted in publishing his claims, depicting Doc as a desperado and his captor as a valiant avenger deserving of the $500 reward offered by Arizona Territory officials for Holliday's arrest. The Denver Tribune stood out as a lone voice of reason, sarcastically questioning Mallon's narratives and his asserted identity. Undeterred, Mallon continued to assert his deputized officer status. Not only that, on May 22, 1882, Mallon also claimed to have seen Wyatt Earp in Denver. The Tribune reported, "There was a man in the city named Greenleaf yesterday who looks very much like Wyatt Earp and who came near being arrested by Mallon sick on account of the resemblance." However, reliable reports confirmed that Wyatt and his youngest brother Warren were residing on the outskirts of Gunnison Colo at that time. They quickly set up camp there with team members Dan Tipton and Texas Jack Vermillion, presumably assisting Holliday through their friendship with Bat Masterson. Masterson, the Marshal of Trinidad, happened to be in Denver for the races during Holliday's arrest, and would play a significant role in subsequent events. Perry Mallon thrived on the sudden surge of attention from Denver newspapers, even going to the extent of asserting that he had received personal authorization from Cochise County Sheriff Johnny Behan to apprehend Holliday. However, his desire for fame was ultimately ruined. The unraveling of his stories commenced as Tribune reporters interviewed Holliday. Doc, during the interviews, affirmed that he had never set foot in Utah territory, had only encountered Mallon for the first time in Pueblo, and was actually residing in Denver when Mallon fabricated his murder allegations. Despite the mounting pressure and the Denver newspapers continuing to publish Mallon's concocted tales, efforts intensified to extradite Holliday back to Arizona territory to face charges related to the Stillwell murder. Pima County Sheriff Bob Paul arrived from the territory to accompany Holliday to Tucson, but lacking the necessary paperwork, he found himself awaiting requisition documents in Denver. In defense of Holliday, friends including Masterson rallied, speaking out against the extradition and formulating a plan to stall proceedings. Holliday soon faced racketeering charges in Pueblo, and an order was issued to release him from custody in Denver to face trumped-up charges in Pueblo. Amidst this unfolding plan, the spotlight once again turned on Mallon. Paul, the Arizona territorial officer, said he had never heard of the man, and the Tribune took a closer look at the habitual liar. In response, Mallon adopted an offensive stance. On May 23, 1882, he penned a self-important letter to the Rocky Mountain News defending his actions. Crafted in the style befitting a con man, the letter brimmed with irony, falsehoods, and indignant self-righteousness. He criticized the Tribune's attack on his integrity, assuring its readers he was here on business, for business, that I mean business, which Doc's friends, who may have misled reporters or the public, will soon find out. Respectfully, Perry Mallon. The true nature of his business would soon be exposed. Meanwhile, widespread coverage of Mallon's exploits proved to be a double-edged sword. While the notoriety garnered him the trust and attention of easily deceived individuals, it also broadcasted the whereabouts of the swindler. Hiram W. Rubley, an elderly investor and blacksmith who had fallen victim to Mallon's $100 scam in Omaha back in 1880, learned about Mallon's exploits in Denver. Seizing the opportunity, Rubley came forward to accuse Mallon of fraud and reclaim his lost money. Providing Tribune reporters with the intricate details of his dealings with Mallon in Omaha, Rubley's cause was championed in subsequent articles, leaving no doubt about Mallon's dubious character. In due course, Rubley confronted Mallon in Sheriff Linton's Denver office, accompanied by a witness, and pressured him to reimburse the $100. Trembling, Mallon requested to speak with Rubley privately in an alley, but Rubley declined. The Tribune later reported that the conman had been compelled to repay the full amount. Mallon's fraudulent schemes were exposed, yet, adhering to the classic conman tradition, he had one last trick to play. His capture of Doc Holliday, driven by the prospect of a $500 reward and the ensuing notoriety, had been thwarted by protracted legal proceedings. As it became apparent that there would be no reward and Holliday would be released, Mallon needed a new plan. The sudden reappearance of Rubley, his old adversary from Omaha, convinced Mallon it was time to exit Denver. To facilitate his departure, he needed cash, and the most likely way for him to get it was to cheat yet another fool. Malin decided on Julius Schweigart, a naive co-owner and secretary of the Great West Hotel in Denver, where both men were staying. As reported by the Denver Republican, Malin presented several letters of introduction from Schweigart's friends and associates in California, raising the possibility that Schweigart might have been one of Malin's initial targets in Denver. Recently divested of his share in the Great West Hotel, Schweigart was intrigued by the accounts of Holliday's arrest. Malin skillfully exploited this impression, weaving tales of substantial rewards he had received for apprehending other criminals. Malin also borrowed money from Schweigart when his cash was running low, and the young, gullible hotel clerk happily agreed. Malin even borrowed a $20 coat from Schweigart and a revolver from another guest, capitalizing on his newfound fame. Once Malin had enticed Schweigart with his sensational exploits, the con man set his trap. He regaled the clerk with a story of a murderer residing in Kansas City under an assumed name. A reward of $1,500 awaited the captor, and Malin proposed a partnership to Schweigart. The plan involved financing their journey and bribing a woman whom Malin claimed possessed precise information about the fugitive's whereabouts. Naively, Schweigart agreed, and on May 27, 1882, the two departed Denver by train, bound for Kansas City. Upon arrival, Malin asserted he would venture alone to Wyandotte to investigate the wanted man, but he never returned. The local depot watchman reported seeing Malin board the westbound Atchison and Santa Fe that Sunday night. 3 days later, Schweigart returned to Denver and reported the incident to the police. Malin took advantage of the gullible clerk, scamming him out of $310 USD. Upon returning home, Schweigart quickly discovered that Malin had also borrowed another $130 from Great West Hotel resident Charles Morgan. Later on, both men would come to know that Malin had successfully swindled the former mayor of Alamosa, extracting $50 and a pistol. Infuriated by his losses, Morgan believed Malin had fled to New Mexico territory and, driven by indignation, embarked on a train journey to Albuquerque on June 1, 1882, in pursuit of the con man. Unfortunately, his quest proved futile. All of this was cold comfort to Schweigart, but a follow-up report in the June 6, 1882, Pueblo Daily Chieftain may have satisfied him a little. The newspaper declared that Malin had been apprehended in Pittsburgh, PA, and would be held until a governor's requisition arrived from Colorado. However, there is no concrete evidence to validate the arrest or the subsequent requisition. Nevertheless, the residents of Denver likely rejoiced at the prospect of being rid of Perry Malin. Doc Holliday, in particular, welcomed the news. Managing to evade extradition to Arizona territory, Holliday's fortunes took a turn when Colorado Governor Frederick Pitkin decided to reject the requisition. Consequently, Holliday was transported to Pueblo to confront the fabricated fraud charges. He was released on bail on June 1, 1882, and soon made his way to Gunnison to reunite with Wyatt and Warren Earp, Dan Tipton, and Texas Jack Vermillion. Always a Southern gentleman, he told reporter Gunnison on June 18, 1882, that he would not seek revenge on Malin. He explained, "No, that is not my way of doing. I shall let him alone if he does me." However, Holliday added that his friends don't feel as generous. Carrying a letter from the House of Comfort and Harlan in Denver, he revealed their commitment to spend up to $1,000, if necessary, to ensure Malin was imprisoned. The anticipated opportunity never materialized. Despite the Kansas City Depot watchman's report indicating that Malin had boarded a westbound train, the elusive con man had, in fact, chosen the opposite direction. Exhibiting the true traits of a flim-flam man, Malin maintained constant movement, refrained from looking back, and promptly initiated another confidence game upon returning to his home state of Ohio. Ultimately, A scam there was unsuccessful, and Mallon was arrested in Toledo in late July 1882 as a suspicious person. But after just 3 months in the county jail, he was released and promptly disappeared. Holliday, in the meantime, remained in Colorado, establishing residence in Leadville for a period before meeting his demise in Glenwood Springs in 1887. Mallon's arrest of Holliday had served as sensational material for the Denver press during May and June 1882. Subsequently, other newspapers adopted Mallon's extravagant narratives, replete with fictitious claims and dime novel portrayals of murder and vengeance. These actions inadvertently propelled Holliday's name and reputation across the nation. While Mallon has faded into obscurity, his brief moment of notoriety inadvertently and almost single-handedly contributed numerous chapters to the enduring legend of Doc Holliday. The stories shared, the history revealed, and the enigmatic personality of Doc Holliday have truly brought the Old West to life.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.